Hi, y'all. It's Bridget Cutshaw with Real Things Living. Today, my guest is Angie Gallagher, and Angie lives in Denver, Colorado, and we connected on LinkedIn. Her background is she used to be a luxury photographer. Now she's in sales or business development, and she's here to share her resilience story today. Can you say hi, Angie?
Hey, thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. So we talked a couple weeks ago about what you wanted to share, and unfortunately, it is common for a lot of people, but you dealt with being bullied as a child, and which is common, but it doesn't mean it's right. Can you
Yeah.
share what happened and what you learned from it?
Yeah, sure. And, I would say, I don't know if I would define it as bullied, but I would
Okay.
definitely define it as, treated as kind of like an outsider to a certain extent. Now, there was an incident that happened that definitely was bullying. Someone threw something hard at my head. And, the premise of the context of what we're talking about in terms of resiliency is my mom is Asian. My mom is Thai. And what's interesting is my sister actually looks more Asian than I do, but most people know that I'm something, right?
Yeah, right.
And,
I've had
and
that too.
probably the worst thing that happened to me was I was at my locker. It was high school, and I was probably a sophomore or a junior, something like that. Someone threw something at my head.
Wow.
Yeah, and called me a chink. And the irony is, I didn't know what that was.
Right.
And so I told my friend about it. I was like, I think so and so threw something at my head and it hurt and called me a chink. And my friend was so mad. I thought she was going to take a hammer to his windows. you know, it's this is and she's white, but she didn't tolerate any of that.
That's good.
Yeah, so that was probably the worst, but as I was growing up, it's all the little subtle things
Right.
just add up and can just chip you away. And I think many of us, it's something. If it's not your skin color, then it's because you got red hair. There's the whole redhead thing. The
Right.
things they had to go through. It's weight, it's height, it's, too tall, too short. But ours, what you and I had discussed is this aspect and layer of race, because you can see, visually, no one can hide something like that. Clearly you're of a mixed race. And you get people who would ask things like, well, what are you? What am, you're acting like I'm some sort of dog,
Right.
like the
What
way
kind of
you talk about it.
breed? Right. What kind of breed you are, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's condescending, and a lot of times it's definitely not, taken in, you're not presented with it in terms of it being like this immensely positive thing. It's more of this inquisical kind of like they're confused, or, well, what exactly, are you? And and that can just do a lot to a kid in terms of, I guess I shouldn't be, biracial. So as a child, and even in parts of adulthood, articulating those feelings, you feel it, but you don't, and you're processing it, and you usually don't know what to do about it, and that internalizes with you
Right.
for
It can
quite a
build
while.
up, right? It can build up and cause unnecessary stress that you don't realize is building up.
Yeah, and I commend the ones, I had some other Asian friends and some friends whose parents were from South America. And, every once in a while you get the defiant one, who's like, well, what do you mean? What, and
Right.
I commend them, but it still chips them away too. It's a strong front to have, but it obviously bothers people internally.
You think people do that just because they are insecure about something? You think?
Always,
Yeah.
even as adults, when you look around you, and when someone, it's the mirror, right? Whatever it is they see in you, it's usually something they fear in themselves.
Ah, didn't think about that. Yeah. You mentioned you were called a chink, I always called a gook, which is a term, I guess, for Vietnamese. My grandmother is Vietnamese, but I'm only a 25%. However, I'm the one in the family that
Mhm.
looks Asian, so I kind of something similar. But the difference was, I think you had a single mom, and that probably affected her too, right? I'm sure she was bullied
Yeah,
as well.
my mom is very, she has got extremely thick skin, and it was hurtful for her. And, but, a sort of a stereotype of Asians is they don't cry, you know.
Right.
And so, but my sister, who looks far more Asian, her stories are way worse than mine, way worse. And so she got picked on far more than I did.
Is she older or younger than you?
She's younger. So friends of mine who were, full-blooded Asian, I just can't even imagine, what they went through.
Yeah, it's just we're living in a world now where we're all trying to I should say intermingle, but try to be together. And I think you'd mentioned outlier before earlier, and is that what you said? I think,
I can't
and
remember. I know the book.
right, but I felt that way when I grew up in the South. I was an outlier,
Yeah.
and and if but now I'm proud of it.
Yeah. 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 Right.
At the
It
time, I
becomes,
was embarrassed. Right,
yeah, it becomes at first it's your weakness and then it becomes your strength. And I'm a big believer in our strengths are also our weaknesses.
that's true.
And I think that when we look at as a person in terms of this wheel that is constantly sort of turning and adapting, and we have different things that are important to us, and then different traits that become stronger, and when we look at those layers, the layer of each person's going to have like their top three, right?
Right,
Things that really impact them, and race is something that really impacted us in terms of creating that person.
right, and I'm not embarrassed about it. So I went back then. I felt bad.
Oh,
Right,
oh, absolutely. Yeah. It was
right.
definitely embarrassing.
Where I grew up, it was we had a lot of Vietnamese refugees come after the Vietnam War, so that
Mhm.
amplified it. They had, but then I felt so much, wanted to help them too, and my mother did, so that was helpful. And that, like you, I mean, my mother was very strong too, very thick skin, but she's like, we're just going to push through this,
Yeah.
and I saw that as a role model, and I'm sure she dealt with that different ways in the
Yeah.
work at work, and but I've
Oh my
learned.
gosh. Yeah. My mom still deals with it at work.
Right, it is just like bizarre, but people don't realize. Hope you don't hear it. By the way, my dog's barking. Hopefully nobody hears her. She's upstairs. But this is called Real Things Living, right? We have dogs. Um, and it's amazing what we can learn from those instances. And what prompted you before you got into business development and sales? You were a luxury photographer. I see that as you trying to help deal with creativity, helping you heal a little bit? Is that,
Oh, yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I
yeah,
have a bachelor's and a master's, and my master's was, primarily about, the past and where it sits with you now.
right,
And, my dissertation, a large part of it had to do with living in between races,
right.
because you feel so connected to, your heritage, as many people do, whether you're Irish, whether you're Asian, and then also religion, is
Yes,
something
that's something
you feel
too.
connected to, and it's something that you feel is a part of your identity. And the when I did my thesis, a lot of it had to do with identity and this crux of family. And out from that, from a commercial standpoint, I became a photographer. And the luxury part is I targeted typically high net worth families. And because I had because my background is fine art, it was a piece of fine art. So these are 30 by 40, 16 by 20s. Some people had smaller, but most people had a wall portrait that, would stay in their home for years. And again, it's that, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's an identity thing.
to help you.
Presented beautifully.
I think
Beauty. Hmm.
and creativity helps you solve some problems. And my thing was I like to write. So that's
Yeah.
my thing for therapeutic or for cathartic, whatever you want to call it. We
Yeah.
still need it no matter what we've gone through. Like you said, we have all of us have scars in some shape or form. And
Mhm.
so what I also think too, it helps you be more disciplined with how you responded to people, maybe what we've been through. We're probably not or less likely to I don't react negatively.
Mhm. Yeah, it definitely is a discipline because the discipline part is first your self-awareness of it,
Hmm.
right? And then there are times as an adult where, then it wasn't race, it was gender. Um,
Correct.
Depending on, I worked in academia. And so you would think that's the last place you would encounter these type of differences to be a disadvantage or an advantage, but in this case, it was not my race. Well, actually, I take that back. There were parts of it. Some other people felt combination of race and also gender, and it's that discipline part is acknowledging it and then acknowledging what you feel about it and then acknowledging what you're going to do about it. And sometimes what you're going to do about it is write it out. And
Yes.
sometimes what you're going to do about it is ignore it, right? And just continue to press on with a smile on your face and being as honest as you possibly can. But the way that I navigated, whether it's race or whether it's gender or both, I navigate with work with the willing. I didn't fight the people who fought me.
Right.
Those people, I just kind of kept them on the outside, right?
Right. There's
I
nothing
wasn't trying
you can
to
do.
please them.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not trying to win their approval. I don't need it,
Correct.
you
You
know.
don't need it.
It's someone who is also calling the shots, but usually the people in leadership, they were usually very supportive.
That's good. That's why they're there.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
purpose of leadership to be the one to lead people to react or act correctly.
Mhm. Mhm.
It how did you how long were you in academia? I didn't remember you mentioning that in our previous.
Well, I was adjunct for over 10 years,
Oh wow.
and so I always kept my foot in the door. I taught online, so I have a long history of online
Oh
curriculum.
wow.
And so, and there's that. And then, it's always the teacher learns more than the student. Plus, I just love the energy of students. And there's a part of me being a salesperson, we love people and we love helping. And so as a teacher, that's a big part of who I am. I love people and I love helping and helping them learn from my mistakes so that they can avoid it and sort of shorten the learning curve. And so I was an instructor in the fine art department, but also, I was always the business person in the arts.
Gotcha. I'm the same way. We are so similar. I just have a business knack. I don't know what it is. I like to look at number. I'm not saying the stereotype of Asians, but that I mean I do. I've always been I like that. I didn't want to when I was in business, I got a marketing degree. My mom was pushing me to get finance because she said, "You're good at math." I'm like, but I don't like it. Right.
Uh-huh.
So I did it using those skills in a business aspect. And
Yeah.
that was very then you'll find that out as you go through life. That's what resilience is about. Keep picking yourself up and you have to adapt
Yeah.
where you need.
Right. Right. I think the biggest part of when I think of the word resilience, it's that knowing who you are and sticking to your guns.
Yes.
And resilience means that no one will beat you down ever. And it is a skill set in that, sure, there are points where you have to allow yourself to feel the sadness or the frustration or the anger, and usually that moment is pretty brief with me. I get there and then it's like, all right, well, what am I going to do about this? And I usually take it with not trying to be in the standpoint of revenge. It's not about revenge, but I get even. Just kidding. But it's more of like, it's the competitive side. I think resilient people are very competitive.
Oh, wow, you got it. You hit it on the
Mhm.
nail. Yeah.
And it's not about, it's more of like, I know who I am and I know what I'm capable of, and no one is going to stand in my way. No words are going to bring me down. Um, sure, they can impact me, but I'm going to pick it up. I'm going to look at it and I'm going to see it for what it is. And then I'm going to throw it in the trash. And then I am going to create what, I know who I am, and I'm just going to keep creating that. So resilience is definitely a large part of it. Is that competitive edge is the motivating factor that gets you out of the rut.
I love that. I've never heard that from anybody else before. And I really like, it's really true. If you think about it, everybody, um, I'm considered very resilient, but I'm also very competitive in certain aspects
Yeah,
because
yeah,
what we've dealt with growing up, I think
yeah,
we had to get out of it, and we had to survive being a nice person. And
yeah, right. And when we look at these other words like motivated, driven, resilience, the difference between these words is that resilience has the rut.
right,
You can be motivated, but there may not necessarily been a rut that you were trying to get out of.
yes,
Resilience means something was oppressing you
yes,
and you came above and out of it. Motivated doesn't necessarily mean you came up, you rose to the top from something. It just means you're already higher up and you're just motivated, right? You just keep climbing.
right.
Resilience means you were beat down, right? You overcame.
That's true. That's a good point. And I started this podcast. Part of it is an offshoot of like my first book, which was called Real Thanks. Because I've had cancer a couple times, and that really
Right.
um, it's not fun to deal with. But because I knew I was going to overcome it,
Yeah.
and part of it, I was motivated to be there for my sons
Yes.
and my
Right.
family, and that was,
Yeah.
I mean, I was very fortunate that I was caught early, but twice, unfortunately. But that's why I'm like, I'm here. I'm going to do this stuff, and
Yeah. Right.
better than stuff coming out. I want to do these things that I've always wanted to do,
Yeah.
and
Children are an amazing motivator. I mean, they are my motivator always. Uh,
yes,
of
yes,
just being resilient and of being driven. And if they weren't, if I didn't have kids, that doesn't mean I wouldn't be as driven, but it's a different kind of motivation when you have children.
definitely. I mean, my husband has been very supportive of. I mean, God, thank God. But my sons were the second time I had it, my youngest son was only 16 and the oldest was not. I'm like, I want to see him graduate high school. I mean, that's what I kept telling myself. But
Mm.
like that's kind of stuff we take for granted many times. And it, I'm just really happy that I've had these experiences. Some of them weren't fun, but I learned a lot from them, and it helps me focus. To me, resilience helps you focus on what's important.
Yeah, yeah, it does. You definitely shave off the fat, of the things of like that don't really matter, and
And
it
a
does
lot of it
stay very
doesn't.
focused.
A lot of it is it's I don't know, connecting with others is really helpful. I think it
Yeah,
helps you come up with some
yeah.
solutions and ideas. And so you mentioned your sons. Mine are adults now. Are yours adulting like mine yet? Or
No, teen, like I have I have a freshman,
okay.
and I have a seventh grader.
Oh yeah, you're at that. Ooh, seventh grade. You'll survive. That's another thing, boy.
Yeah.
Resilient.
Oh,
A mom
yeah,
of boys. I'm just telling you.
yeah. Teen girl.
Yeah,
Yep.
teen girls are probably much harder than boys. The downside of, I should say downside, the difference is boys, they do things that risk their life.
Ah, not my son. My son's pretty mellow.
No, mine are just like, hey, very
Yeah,
what is that? I should say athletic, but they just don't think, boys just don't. And girls are more emotional.
yeah, right, right. I talk about things I survived poverty, I survived, racism, and in a couple of years it'll be I survived a teenage girl.
Yes. My sister, her daughter,
Love that.
she is 15 now. Lord help us. I mean, she's so sweet, but then it's just a lot of.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
and
I did it to my
say
mother. You know what I'm
I
saying?
shouldn't say girl, it's my son too. Oh my god.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm probably did it to my mother too. And but I was the calmer one. I'm the middle child, so I was like the bridge. My
Yeah.
mom always says. So she had 3 kids. So it's a little everybody's experience is different. And so
Mhm.
now that you applying, you're like a sales and business development now. You're applying what those skills, like you said, the sales. You like to be with people, and does it help with making decisions, business decisions? You think?
You mean the past
Yeah, the
of
past that you dealt with.
yeah, I think that we hopefully what I feel that I've gained is empathy and compassion because
Yeah,
when you go through something like that, it's like, wow, well, what are other people dealing with that sort of set them aside and make them feel alienated and not really a part of something?
right.
And so even still, as a saleswoman, that, the love for people, and people sometimes get the wrong idea of what sales is all about. It's not about just the numbers. We truly want to help people, but we're helping the right people and the right fit. And
Right,
that does
right, you're
drive,
solving a problem for them usually.
yeah. And wherever there's value, people will spend money on it. If there's no value, they won't spend money on it. And so that's how you're really helping people. It is a metric because it's like, wow, look at all the people I'm helping because this is how much they paid for it. And as ironic as that may sound, it's true. It is a metric that indicates how you're helping people, what they want the most help with, right? Because you're seeing what products and services are selling, what you're selling the most of. And so that's an indicator of what people need, when it comes to demand.
Right, right, right. Back in the old day, that the concept of sales is shoving something down someone's, you know, throat. They don't really need it, and I think that's why salespeople got a bad rep in the past.
Yeah, because a lot of people even like B2C,
Yes,
to the front, to clients that get one bad experience and they hate them all. And
yes,
that's really what kind of tainted, it's the poison apple. And we still have that today. I mean, that will never end. It's like anything, it's whether it's an attorney or a CPA, you just have slightly different personalities within those industries
right,
that make it, great and then also not so great. I mean, look at doctors, so
right.
even people's experiences with that.
And
So any
that's
industry.
important. Yeah,
But resilience, goes again across all industries as well. Going back to doctors or attorney, I mean, even a plumber, the challenges that we face, resiliency is an important factor of getting through the day to day, but getting through each year. There's going to be right now,
yeah. COVID, right.
yeah, we have to be collectively, globally resilient.
That's true. And how we can help each other out to get through this and be respectful. And
Hmm.
that's really what I think, my take on all this. And you had mentioned, being female gender in the industry, in any kind of industry. I don't know how that's going to be. I was reading, I don't remember where, but a lot of women are going to have to stop stop working because of the situation with schools and COVID.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so that's kind of,
Needing to
you know,
stay home.
yeah, to stay at home, and it's difficult,
Well, the
to
moms.
multitask like that. And but I understand that it's needed.
Yeah, right.
Some people blow it off, but you have to be respectful of it. And I'm just, you probably are dealing with it, but my kids, like I said, are one's out of college and one's still in school, college. But it's different than having the students your age, and so are they
Yeah,
at home?
K
Um,
through 12. Yeah, they part of the week they're at their dad's, then part of the
okay,
week they're with us, and, um, It is challenging because I'm very driven with my work.
Right.
And, for the most part, my daughter is very self-sustaining. I mean, I don't even usually have to tell her to do her
That's
work, but
good.
my son is a whole other story. I mean, I had to go in there and just make sure, like, what are you doing? Like, I trust you're doing your homework. I trust that
He's
you're,
a high schooler, right? So yeah, you have to, yeah,
yes, there are on so many different layers. The world has to be resilient together to get through this. The businesses that are tanking or just waiting for the economy to pick up, resilience of people who lost jobs and who are trying to find a job, resilience of the teachers having to rebuild their entire curriculums because now they have to teach online.
right.
But the beautiful thing out of all of this is the power of working remote and the power of technology to connect us and learning the tools, even like here, looking at the camera, talking to you, talking to this audience, and learning the skills of utilizing the technology to keep connecting. And it's the connecting that keeps us resilient.
Yes, exactly. That is really what this is about. And I'm so glad I've been using Zoom for several years, but never to this level, you know. But it's because all my clients, they had to work from home, and they didn't know what was going to happen either when at the start of it. My sister's a seventh grade teacher, and she had here in our county, we had she had less than 24 hours to come up with a plan to teach online because
Oh
the
yeah,
school district didn't have it yet, you know.
right, right.
So
Yeah, they were pulling a ton of hours, and the healthcare workers too.
yeah, oh
You
yeah,
know,
it's
the
I feel
explosion
sorry
of
for the
healthcare.
healthcare workers and the teachers. I think healthcare workers have it much worse, and I
Yeah.
definitely respect them, what they're doing, because they are risking a lot.
Oh, right, right. Well, the teachers too. I mean, we've had
Yes,
outbreaks, we've had a lot of people quarantined, and whether it's a matter of like who's got it worse, who's got it better.
isn't right.
There is aspects of that. I'm lucky that I work at a place we could work remote. There are some industries you can't work remote, so they couldn't go into work. Think of manufacturing.
Yes.
They have to go in order to create the product, and you go to the store and some of the shelves are kind of not really stocked up because they couldn't really figure out a way to safely get people in production.
Well, yeah, that's
We've seen a
one thing we
shortage
had.
of materials.
I'm in the considered part of the communications industry and printing. And in the
Yeah,
beginning of COVID, some states were wanting to shut down the printers. So we had to get state legislators involved. Like, hello, um, we're,
yeah,
we need to be open. I mean, I'm not working at a printer, but I deal with them. And I think the state of Pennsylvania closed a lot of them, but
yeah,
you can't have the packaging without having these printers and these supply
yep,
chain. They're all
yep,
people don't realize that, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, because they just think printing. They think, oh, it's just a book or
yeah.
something. No, it's
And we'll continue to use technology to make
yes.
it safe. We're talking about immunity passes and people getting COVID testing, instead of having a 45-minute line where everybody's getting their temperature taken, which is, it's what we have to do in the meantime. But as more products and more technology becomes available, then it's something like, hey, I got tested on COVID and I have proof. So this is my immunity pass.
That's good.
We'll
That's
start
great.
seeing, I'm hearing of pilots in small towns, actually one of them being in the South, of being able to, do something like a 50-person event or a 100-person event because everyone has been tested and everybody can verify legally that they tested negative. So that's again where technology is used for us to connect.
I think technology is going to definitely be very prevalent in the future. I mean, it has been, but it's going to be even more so. But I think it's a good thing. I look at things and try to look at the positive aspect of a situation. And thank God for Zoom. And my podcast has done really well during this COVID, which is I mean, that's in the beginning, it was like, oh crap. And that's what I was thinking. What am I going to do? Right.
Huh?
And then like, okay, pull up your boots, girl, and push
Uh,
through. And that's kind
yeah,
of
right. I
what it
think the
is.
world, everybody has learned, or everybody has added different new skills of resilience.
Yes.
Love our toolboxes. We
Yeah.
can adapt, and that's really the best thing about it. Clearly, we can adapt.
And I think you're a great role model for other women. I think it's great that you shared your story, and I love that we have so much in common. That's why I'm loving you so much. But right, our background as children, and then our being trying to be creative in what we need, and then we're both in our business development, sales mentality, and because it
Yeah,
is about people and helping people
it is.
and being authentic while you're doing it. That's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah,
And
and being honest, you know,
yeah,
you gotta be a good listener, you gotta be a good, and listening is communicating,
it
and then
is.
you have to be very verbal and upfront, and it's all of those things, which is why I love sales.
It's all good, right? So
Totally.
where can people learn more about you?
LinkedIn is the best place. I mean,
Okay.
that's where I'm at.
So what I'll do, everybody, I will have a summary of this talk, and then I'll put the link, Angie Gallagher's link to LinkedIn on there. And I appreciate you so much. And I'm very jealous actually that you're in Colorado. I wanted to live in Colorado.
That's right. Yeah.
It's all good.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you so much.